Good morning, boys and girls. How are you guys today?
Good.
I'm so excited because tomorrow is going to be February 2nd and it's Groundhog's Day. I love Groundhog's Day because the groundhog comes out of his burrow and he lets us know if we're going to have an early spring or 6 more weeks of winter. So I saved for today my favorite Groundhog Day book called Will Spring Be Early or Will Spring Be Late? So I hope you enjoy as I read for you this charming little book about a groundhog who gets up to do his job on February 2nd. Will Spring Be Early or Will Spring Be Late by Krachie Johnson. It was the 2nd morning of February. The woods and fields were covered with snow. The wind blew from a cold, gray sky. "This is the day," said a voice from under the ground. "This is the day I make my prediction. Will spring be early or will spring be late?" The voice came from a hole in the middle of a field. It was the groundhog coming out of his tunnel, talking to himself.
Where is the groundhog?
Right, there's the hole, right there. "If I don't see my shadow, spring will be early. I can go right out and spread the glad news." The groundhog's nose came up through the hole, pausing there. "Oh, but if I do see my shadow, I'll go back in my tunnel. It will mean bad news. Spring will be late this year." There he is, sticking his nose. Oh.
I think I see his shadow.
The groundhog shivered. "How nice it is that I'm expected to stay out when only I have good news," he said. He raised himself up onto his front paws. "Nobody wants to hear of a late spring." He looked at the gray sky. "No shadow today. Spring will be
early." Is that his head out?
He hopped out of the hole. "I must tell the animals. It will please them. Even the grouchy pig who sneers at all my predictions." He started off and stopped. "Wait," he said. "Spring is an important matter. I must be certain that there is no sun. I must make sure that I have no shadow."
I hope you have.
So there he is. He said, "This is real important. I can't go running around telling everybody spring is here. I better be sure." He tried to smell the sun. He raised his ear. He listened for it. But all he smelled and heard was a truck on the road at the edge of the field. The road was beyond the edge of the groundhog's world, so he paid no attention to the truck or the words on it that read, "Artificial Flower Company."
Wow.
Artificial Flower Company.
What does that mean?
That's a great question. Who can answer it for him?
No.
Alexandra, thanks for raising your hand. What does artificial mean?
It means that they're really good at it.
Possibly. Anyone else? Artificial means not real, fake. Artificial flowers are flowers that are made out of material. They're not real.
They're fake.
So what do you think's on that truck? Riley.
Fake flowers.
Okay, keep that in your mind because that's what's going to make this story silly. As the truck rounded a bend in the road, a red flower flew from it. The flower sailed high across the field on the wintry wind. There's the groundhog. No sun, no shadow. No sun, no shadow. He kept saying it to himself.
No shadow.
"Definitely an early spring," he said. Now he was sure. Smiling, he set off to the woods where most of the animals slept during the cold winter. "How delighted they will be when I tell them," he said. "My prediction will spread joy throughout the land." So he hopped along happily, humming a spring song.
But there's no he can't find food.
No, let's see. Suddenly, he halted. There, with its stem in the snow, was a bright red flower in full bloom. The groundhog stared at it. His eyes grew wide and his mouth opened, and he said, "Spring." Then he shouted, "Spring! Spring is here!" Because what did he find?
A flower.
But he doesn't know. Do the words on the truck mean anything to him?
No.
He broke into a run. "I have never made a better prediction than this," he said. "Even the pig is going to congratulate me." And he yelled through the woods, "Spring! Spring is here! Spring!" he told the badger. The groundhog said so, the dormouse cried, and everybody was dancing in the snow. Groundhog said so. "Spring is here. Spring is going to be early. How good is that?"
Yay!
"Spring," said the skunk. "Is it really spring?" The groundhog said so, said Rabbit, hopping with joy and skidding on a patch of ice. The squirrel stuffed the last of his acorns in his mouth. With a carefree cheer, he jumped from the hollow in his tree, and he landed in a snowdrift.
Can I see?
"Oh my goodness, the groundhog says it's spring. Let's go, everybody." "Spring," yelled the chipmunk. Thanks to the groundhog, the good predictor cheered, the raccoon holding out a paw as the groundhog ran by. High five, groundhog. That's great. What a great prediction." "Spring is here," the groundhog kept shouting in a voice that was now becoming rather hoarse. "I predict spring is here. And not only is spring here, it's here right now."
That means it.
And he ran.
So it's sad.
He ran to Bear's cave. When Bear woke up and heard what the groundhog was saying, he roared in delight. "Groundhog, you do a better job every year. Spring. Spring in February. Splendid. What would we do without you?" "I don't know," said the groundhog, swelling up his chest as he ran off. At last, he came to the pig. The shouting and cheering had waked the pig, and he was now grumpily rooting under a tree stump for breakfast. Rooting means he was taking his snout and pushing the snow out of the way.
Wow.
"Spring? Spring is here?" the groundhog shouted loudly in the pig's ear. "Humph!" said the pig. "Spring," said the groundhog.
It's gonna see sad.
With his mouth full of frozen roots, the pig turned around and glared at the groundhog. "Look," he said, snorting and thrusting his snout to the windswept field. "Ice! Snow! It's spring," said the groundhog, suddenly shivering. "Go away," said the pig, and he went back to rooting. Pig says, "Really? You're kidding. Look around you. There's ice and snow, and it's freezing. Spring?" So now the groundhog wasn't so
Sure.
The groundhog went back to the other animals. "Spring really is here," he said. "Come, let me show you." "Of course spring is here," said the rabbit. "You said so. And you are always right," said the bear. "If you were not right, we wouldn't believe in you." "Come," said the groundhog. So where do you think the groundhog's going to take them?
To the flower.
The animals followed him to the field where they saw the red flower in full bloom. It was more than they needed to see. They danced in a circle around it and shouted praises of spring to the groundhog. The pig stopped rooting for breakfast and came over to see what was going on.
There he is.
The happy animals watched as he trotted up to the red flower. "You see," said the groundhog, "spring is here." "Harumph," said the pig, staring at the flower. Then he rooted it up out of the snow. He took it in his mouth and he chomped on it. He tossed the flower aside. "The leaves are paper, the stem is wire, and the petals are plastic," he said, "and the lot of you will freeze out here." And as he left, he glared at the sky and at the groundhog. "I have a prediction to make," he said. "It's going to snow." And just as the pig said that, it began to snow.
No, not it.
Shivering, the animals looked at the twisted flower, and they looked at one another. The groundhog began to creep away quietly. "Just a moment," bellowed the bear. "There is some explaining to be done. Who is the cause of this? Why are we out here freezing in a snowstorm?"
What?
"We were celebrating spring," said the chipmunk. "We were all so happy," said the dormouse, "until the pig came and chewed the flower." "Precisely," shouted the bear. "And now we are cold and miserable and ridiculous. It's perfectly clear who's to blame." And the animals all nodded. They blamed the pig, of course. And on the second morning of every February, the groundhog continues to make his prediction. Will spring be early or will spring be late?
Wait.
We'll have to wait till tomorrow to find out.
Why tomorrow?
Tomorrow is
Groundhog's
Groundhog's Day.